Welcome back to another edition of the All Beef No Filler podcast presented by Prep Baseball Nebraska. I'm your host, Pascal Paul, Director of Scouting for Prep Baseball Nebraska, joined as always by Parker Hageman, our Director of Social Media and Ops for the Upper Midwest region. We're here going to talk a little 2026 class for you today. I know y'all thought we skipped it by going from 25s to 27s, but we did not. We're here and we're going to get ready to talk about the class that just got through the future games.
Yeah, we kept everyone on their toes. Like if we mix it around a bit, that way they.
Yeah, then you really got to pay attention to what's coming out, marketing. Well, we just finished the future games with this class. The one dude that wasn't there was the number one overall guy who's been the number one overall ranked player in this class since its inception is Brody Gindra. He's committed to the Nebraska Huskers pretty early on, was a Team USA member. We actually don't spend as much time on him because of that, but is, in my opinion, the top of this class. He was 92 last spring, can pitch it, has three really good pitches, in my opinion, all around the zone. Is a shortstop third baseman with, I think his hit tool might be his best tool. He's going to hit probably 3 or 4 hole in Elkhorn South's lineup this year. Like he said, number one player since its inception, been committed to the Huskers since last, I think, February. So easily the top player in this class.
I think if we go back, was it last year we had him on as, just talking about his Team USA experience, which was, interesting insight from him and how the whole thing went down. And like when he was in the Dominican and they ran into David Ortiz, like as a team and all that kind of stuff. So if you go back into our Spotify or whatever, you can go back and listen to that full interview. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, he was a good listen for sure. Good interview. Can't say enough good things about Brody Gindra and his game. Moving on, though, we have the future games guys. Most of the top in this class did come to the future games. Cordell Klinkenbeer being the next one. Another Husker commit. Kind of another similar theme for this class, especially early on in the recruiting process with him, Cal Anthony, Cato, and Charlie Ziola all committing to the Huskers. A total of 6 future games commitments, with Carson Durr just committing to the Omaha Mavericks as a catcher. But Cordell Klinkenbeard, hyper athletic. I know you've seen him a couple times, whether it was at the state games or at the future games, but what he can do with the bat in BP is incredibly impressive.
Yeah, it was either 103 or 105 off the bat in BP at the future games. But like on the mound, right? He goes up against Team Minnesota in the future games, and I think he opened up a lot of eyes. It happened to be one of the games that we've got the top brass, Sean Duncan's watching, and Cordell's on the mound, and he's dicing a little bit, and he's running up to 90, and he looks every part of like could be on the mound, could be behind, could be with the bat. Like, where do you see him? Like ultimately, if you're like, hey, he's got another year to grow, develop, but like, where do you see him?
The mound is intriguing because it hasn't been something he's done for a long period of time, at least worked on specifically in an off season. So I think that ceiling on the mound is incredibly high. Now, whether he figures that out, who knows? Hitting's the hardest thing in baseball. If a guy can hit in college, I think for most people you can flip a quarter on whether or not they can or can't, just because the level and the transition is incredibly high with the skill set that those pitchers have at the college level. But I think 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. Right now, I'd say he's a hitter just because he's probably spent a little bit more time on that. I'm not sure he sticks behind the plate. I think third base, maybe a power hitting second baseman or a left fielder could be in his future. But he has the athleticism to stay back there. It's just consistency in his receiving and blocking. We'll mention all 3 of them from Creighton Prep. 2 outfielders, Cal Anthony and Charlie Ziola, and then Braden Cato, a third baseman, right-handed pitcher, a third baseman, all from Creighton Prep going to the Huskers as well. 3 guys that came down and performed really well, I thought, in the future games.
Yeah, as we're transitioning towards the spring season here, does that put Creighton Prep in like the upper echelons of what the Class A ball could be?
Yeah, they're there. It's going to be interesting. You're bringing up those. You're going to get me in trouble with everybody around here bringing up the team rankings. But yeah, they're going to be right up there at the top between them. Obviously, Millard West, Lincoln East, I think probably has the best lineup in the state with all the power and hit tools they got coming back. I'm sure there's others, and so you're going to get me in trouble now with everybody else that I'm not mentioning. But yeah, Creighton Prep with everything, and I mean, those 2 guys in the outfield, Ziola and Anthony, are as good as you can get, I would say, especially defensively and offensively. I think both different players too. I think Charlie Zaiola's swing from the left side is one of the more pretty swings that you'll find in Nebraska. And then Cal Anthony's a very quiet kid that just absolutely produces. Nothing flashy, I don't think, about his game, but the stats don't lie, and he has produced, and he did produce last year at a very, very high level.
Well, you hit on the guys that are committed, and obviously it just seems like the Huskers went in and marked their territory with everybody, whoever they wanted. But you got a few uncommitteds in the top 10 still, right? I mean, like, what's remaining in that area that looks good?
More arms right now with Stelling, Kristen, and Maskey. Maskey's a new addition to the top 10. Ran it up to 91 this fall. Has a decent little slider, again, kind of raw on the mound, but an athletic 6'2" frame that has a little bit of a whippy arm. Stelling, I think, has a chance to throw pretty hard. He's going to come from a little bit of a lower slot. His lower half is massive. I think it was 23 to 24 is when physically I think he had a really big jump, I can remember, especially in his lower half. And I think as he comes into that body and that physicality, he's going to really be able to produce that out of the arm and into the baseball.
And then those are the pitching sides of things. And obviously we drop a little bit out of the top 10, but you've got position players up and down the board that you like?
Yeah, 2 catchers right up at the top. Obviously, Carson Durr just committed. Otherwise, he would have been mentioned too. Like we said before, great get for the Mavericks. Cooper Smith and Maverick Christensen are 2 catchers that. Well, Cooper Smith was down in future games with us. Another kid came over. Actually, the team is 2 states, but Cooper transferred from an Iowa high school over to a Nebraska high school this year, so he's now in our rankings and at 10. But both kids very, very physical. Maverick will hit from the left side. Probably less known for people. He plays more Legion baseball and a Class B school in Elkhorn North, but has caught some of the best arms in the state. Ryan Zimmerman, who's at Nebraska. Colin Watcher. He caught them as a freshman when they're in their state championship. He was a freshman catching them. So I think his bat is coming along a lot more. I think he's going to produce a lot more power from the left side. So he's someone to definitely keep an eye on at the catching position. In the outfield, physically, these 3 aren't going to wow you a whole lot, but I think athletically they're as good as you can get between Donnie Rosenthal, Jensen Albers, and Ian Ahrens. Donnie's an athletic outfielder, can play all 3, right-handed hitter. Like I said, smaller size, but really handle the bat, manipulate themselves on the base pass.
They've got tools.
Yeah. Jensen Albers can throw it. He's a left-handed pitcher as well. He's got 3 pitches, more pitchability guy, not high velo, but can really move the baseball in and out. Ian Ahrens is another one that very athletic, a little bit undersized, a little bit raw in his actions and how he plays the game, but produces. Has the athletic tools in the showcase style and also has produced in game. So those 3 outfielders, definitely ones to keep an eye on in that 26 class, whether you're recruiting for them or to watch them move up in the rankings, because those 3 guys have the it factor.
All right. But if you're a college coach looking for some infield action, some stuff out in the diamond, who are you looking at, or who do you think has some high upside?
We talked about the 2027 and all the shortstops at the top of the class, and this is where I think the shortstops come into play for the 2026 class. There's a lot of them. Now, Noah Carroll, a first baseman, right-handed pitcher, he's going to be the lone first baseman kind of around these rankings. Produces at a high level again. Exit velo very good. Has been up to the upper 8s in showcase. We haven't seen it as much in game, or at least I haven't. But we're looking to see that more as we head into the 2025 spring season. But for the shortstops, Jackson Apoon will lead this next group of infielders. Another athletic kid. We haven't had him at an event yet, so we can't really compare and contrast the numbers for the other guys. But played for Millard South, has hit at the top of their lineup the last 2 years. Actually played shortstop over Brody Gindra. Kicked him over to third base when Brody was there last year. So a lot of tools, a lot of athleticism. Just need to see him a little bit more.
But you've seen him in game a bit last spring?
We saw him last spring. Yep, quite a bit. We watched Millard South, definitely. He's got a lot of range at shortstop. Actions play well. I really like his hand path is really short, sweet to the ball. But again, we just don't have those numbers, those raw numbers to compare. with everybody else in the class. Then we have two guys that came to the future games with us, Tanner Evans and Garrett Anderson. Tanner Evans, I think, plays his balls off in the gameplay. A little bit undersized. He's not going to wow you with the stats. Not going to be a huge showcase metric dude, but plays the game really hard, especially down in the future games. I thought he was turning singles into doubles, cared about the game and showcasing what he could do. And I think sometimes when you go down there, people are trying to, be pretty and look good, where I felt he just played the game, especially to win.
I think you labeled him as a dirt dog before.
Yeah.
Just a guy who's gonna, like we said, he stretched kind of a bloop single into a double just by hustling and getting into the base and kicking up dirt.
Yeah, he caused problems for the other team, especially in a showcase format when you're not really expecting a lot of that. He made a lot of things happen for our team that I thought a lot of other kids typically don't do in those settings, which is different.
One thing I noticed, and I can't remember where I saw his end of the year swing, one of the other tournaments they were in, but like if you recall right, remember he had the bat that started
Big
down
layback,
back.
yeah.
Yeah, big layback. And now it's upright, or at least by the end of the fall, a couple times I saw it. So I'm curious to see how it played out. Obviously, he put up numbers that were pretty decent within the showcase setting, got some hits, hit the ball. It just looked a little unconventional when you're watching it, but now it kind of seemed more traditional of a swing. So I think
it always produced. From everything I've seen of him, obviously we don't go and watch, summer circuit, but he's always hit. He's always had really good bat to ball skills. He's always been able to manipulate the barrel and move the baseball around. But I did notice that too. You saw a video later on in the fall, and you saw his hands and everything in the barrel just tipped up a little bit more, which maybe he's getting some feedback from other people, and that's what he needs to do. I'm no hitting guy, so I can't comment on that. Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, don't ask me. Next is Garrett Anderson, who I think might be one of the slicker fielding shortstops in the class. Tall, long, rangy. Does get on the mound a little bit. I don't think it's his forte or what he wants to do, but as far as shortstop position and what he does and brings to the table, it's definitely defense. His glove plays to the Division I level, in my opinion.
Hey, weird, another Creighton prep guy.
They're out there. They should have plenty of motivation this year, I think. Those Creighton Prep Blue Jays. You're gonna get me in trouble, and I'm not liking it at all.
I'm just setting the stage for when we do release the rankings here in a month or so.
Right. Well, there's another group of shortstops outside of those guys that we took to the future games. A group of 4. Austin Baldwin, who's kind of a combo shortstop outfielder. I really like his bat. I think it plays with some power. Not sure he sticks at shortstop. If we're talking about Garrett and his defense probably brings most of the class, I think Austin and his bat. Defensively, he has the athleticism to stick there. He's just a little bit raw if you're talking about at the Division I level. So I think a move to the outfield maybe could happen. Then 3 guys, Brennan Vernon, Bryce Lakers, and Kai Vanis. All 3 under the radar guys. Brennan Vernon is a head coach's son at Lincoln Southwest. Really upped his athleticism in his last event. 60 time across the board was way better than his event previous. Really impressed me, I thought. And then Bryce Lakers and Kai Vanis, both guys that had produced very well in the spring, came to an event last, I think, in the state games, and did way better than I thought. Their numbers produced more, I thought. Their speed, their exit velo was better than what their gameplay suggested, in my opinion.
I thought Lakers was sneaky. Like, he did a lot of stuff right. Like, I remember asking him, like, when he started doing stuff, I was like, who's this guy? Who's this guy?
Yeah, I think I told you I saw him late in game, and we got him to the state games. And yeah, him and Kai Vanis. Kai Vanis came to another prospect scout day in the fall, and really, really hit well. Really hit well. I like both of those guys. I think they're going to find, it's tough to say now. You look at our future games team. I was going to say Holmes at the Division I level potentially, but our future games team and the recruiting process has just slowed down almost to a halt. With obviously the transfer portal has put a big halt on everything, but then roster limits and then this JUCO ruling where it's only one guy right now, but it's out there to be applied across about 1 million people. So it's going to be. I think these guys are going to have a little bit different path, but I think all of these guys have high potential to be impact guys at the next level.
That's fair. That's fair. Obviously, we ran down a higher end of the top 20, 25. If you're digging down a little further, kind of going into the weeds a little bit, looking at a dark horse, who are some names that are somebody who's maybe impressed you or put up some tools that you're like, hey, in the next year or so, this guy might be making some big jumps?
One arm is Ricky Scarpello, and I hope I'm saying that right. He's someone who we saw at the tournaments this fall over in Iowa. Big 6'5", long, lanky, not as much fast twitch, I think, as you would like right now, but I think give him another year or two. His arm action was clean. Everything about him was good. He was up to 84, I believe, on the day we saw him. Kind of sat more 81, 83. But he's got a lot of potential just with his size and the skinniness of his body and his ability to add some weight to him.
So you liked it from the pitching side more than the positional side, or you're more intrigued by the upside on the mound?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then as a bat down in the weeds, a couple spots below him would be Alex Small. Hearing really good things about him over the off season. I think he's put on some weight. I think he's, from what I hear, really smashing the baseball in the cages. So I'm really excited. I think he's signed up for our ID event at the moment, our new winter ID. So I'm excited to see him at that, and hopefully all of those things that we keep hearing are true. And given that they just won a state championship, I'm sure he has all the motivation to come out and fill those holes or those shoes that Kel Fountain left. So
big shoes.
Yeah, big shoes. But everything I hear about him in the offseason is really good. So he's one to keep an eye on just further down the rankings for any of those JUCO D2 guys or smaller D1s that are looking for a dark horse. He's definitely one to put on your list.
And a lot of these names here, I mean, when you scroll up and down the list on prepbaseballreport.com, it's a lot of the names are slated to be at the preseason All-State coming up, right?
Coming up on March 2nd, we are down to about less than 30 spots, I think, for that event. We have the large majority of the ranked guys. It's going to be a massive event, like always. Sell out for the 9th year in a row. It's if you have an invite, if you want to be there, it's the event to be at.
Yeah, if you're sitting on an invite, you better, with 30 spots left, you better, like after you listen to this, go register, get it.
The nice thing is we do have that ID event, so there is an opportunity, which we didn't have in years past, where, me feeling really bad about not letting, some kids that want to come, we have no other opportunity for them to at least update their profile for the next invite-only event, or, you're heading into the spring season. If a coach sees you, they're going to look up your PBR profile. So at the very least, getting that updated is definitely what you want to do. And, we just announced, I think it was yesterday, that we have an unsigned senior that we've never had before. So seniors that need to update their profile, make sure you head to that. And that will be the last senior event, I believe, for the year for PBR. So right before the spring. I know, like we said, recruiting's slowing down. So just another opportunity for seniors to get their numbers updated before that spring season starts.
But yeah, 2025, I mean, everything like we've talked about here with the recruiting side of things, it's kind of mucked up. We got the new JUCO ruling, which it's still hard to see what's going to come out of it. Interesting note, I talked to a former player that I coached who just jumped out of a JUCO into a D3 program. And the minute he heard about that, he went to figure out if he could do that. And they told him, no, he's not eligible to do that. So
they give him a reason why or no?
I didn't get the full reason out of him, but it doesn't sound like it's a broad, like it's going to be for everybody, at least not right away. And whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, we'll see. But it definitely seems like it's going to be a thing somehow. And I don't know. It's just going to be weird because I think the reports that I see out of, Baseball America, and when you talk to people, there's almost going to have to be a collective bargaining agreement between the NCAA and players to figure out exactly what eligibility is and set guidelines and address every little bit of it, because these little loopholes that keep jumping up are causing more and more issues on the rosters. And for every high school kid that's trying to look for a spot, it becomes harder and harder.
Yeah, I agree. Well, also when you get the courts involved, when a real ruling comes from a real court, it's not the NCAA or the NJCAA, just a governing body making their own rules however they want. When it's, the United States government saying this is what it is, that's what it is. I just think it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, because I don't know a lot of the case with the football player. Where was it? Army, right? So I don't know.
Vanderbilt, yeah. He
Vanderbilt.
was
I
at
don't
New
know.
Mexico and then went to Vanderbilt, or JUCO in New Mexico, went to Vanderbilt, yeah.
And that's it. That's all there is to the story.
I believe the reasoning behind it was NIL money became, within that time, his argument was I wouldn't have gone to JUCO or something like that if I'd
Because of the
known
NIL.
NIL. And so again, it kind of goes back to follow the money, right? But
Right.
that seems to be more of what it is. And there's another proposal that came out maybe this week where it's like, what if everybody just gets 5 years now instead of 4 years eligible?
I saw that. I saw the NCAA just saying they're going to make a fifth year of eligibility. But also, like, how can that be fair to the kid that you coached and he's D3 and now he doesn't because he can't get paid? So just because I can't get paid, I don't get my fifth year? Like, that's kind of messed up. I don't see a court ruling in the favor of the schools then. Just
Right.
my opinion.
But I do think D3 could get NIL money if you
They can,
go.
but he's just not a person that would,
Right,
So like,
right.
so because I can't get paid, I can't. That doesn't add up. That math doesn't add up in my head. But who am I? I'm just some guy on a all beef no filler podcast sitting in my house in Nebraska.
We're just worried about our 25s, 26s, 27s just getting a fair shake here in Nebraska is what it is, I think.
I know this is a little bit of different take, but I don't. Everyone's like mad or concerned about the high school recruiting, right? Or the high school kid getting recruited. I see a lot of that on Twitter now of who's thinking about the high school kid. And with everybody jumping in the transfer portal, do we need to be thinking about the high school kid? Should we be slowing their process down? Should they be going to a 2-year school and figuring it out and cheaper education? You're going to get your general education classes done anyway. And then you're mature enough to be able to handle 300 person classrooms and an actual business of college baseball when you go to it.
I mean, you could speak to it from both a player and a coach side of things of when you were part of it, but like, there's a perception, and I think that I've heard it at least in Minnesota, the rumblings of the coaches, that if a player goes the JUCO route, oh boy, like they don't get oversight, they don't, they're not, they don't get the handheld like you would in a D2, D1, NCAA program right away. Like that's got to be a misconception, right? Like the coaches and the programs in JUCO probably keep an eye on their players just as much as any other NCAA program, right?
I think it just depends on the program. I think
Yeah.
there's awful Division I programs out there, just brutal ones, that don't win and haven't won and won't win for a while, like there's good Division II programs that would beat the snot out of those bad Division I programs. Same with JUCO D3. I was fortunate enough to be at one of the top JUCOs in the country, be able to coach there and play there. So yeah, I'm in favor of JUCO. If you find the right one, then yeah, it can be a difference maker. But you find the wrong Division I, and you're going to be in transfer portal too. It doesn't. You're not changing the outcome.
Yeah.
You just picked the wrong place. I just think kids are immature. I was immature. I wouldn't have been able to, and this is just a personal. It's not a blanket across all kids, but I wouldn't have been able to handle a 300 person classroom academically coming out of high school. There's just no way. So I needed that. Not every kid needs that, but I think most could benefit from that. I believe you're way more into the recruiting process and immune to it's hard. The recruiting process is hard for parents, for players in high school level. They don't know the calendar. They don't know where to go, what to do, how to be seen. It's a huge FOMO thing. So yeah, I think 2 years in junior college and getting your feet wet with college baseball and college and how it runs and the business side of it, because most people don't understand it's a legit business. And when you go there, those coaches are getting hired and fired on. Now it's $1 million contracts for some of those coaches in baseball. So yeah, it's a business.
Yeah.
Strap it on. Get ready.
And we've had JUCO coaches on here, and they pride themselves on moving people along. I mean, that's part of not just winning, but where they're sending them to, right? If you're if you're winning and your players are getting to the next level, that's huge, right?
Yeah, that's the pinnacle, really, of junior college. Yeah, it's going to be different. The recruiting process is going to be different for this class, obviously, as we can see. It's going to be different for the 2027s. Over the next 3 years, it's going to change and shift, I think. And I don't think anyone has a crystal ball and can predict where it's going to go, but it's going to be changing and shifting. And I think kids of all skill levels need to be open to all areas now. Because the best funnel to the top. With the transfer portal, the best funnel to the top, always. You're a good player, you're going to funnel to the top. So find a place where you can start out, develop, have a chance to fail.
Fail fast, fail quickly, and get better, right?
Yeah, it's that easy.
Well, you want to put a bow on the 2026 class?
Yep. Thanks, everybody, for listening to the 2026 class. I know we got into a little bit of recruiting and some other stuff, some extras. So this is a 2026 podcast with extras. But thanks for joining us on the All Beef No Filler podcast. We'll be back in a couple weeks, talk about the 2028s and the start of everything that their process is going to be about. And again, going to be different than the 2026s and 27s. So join us in a couple weeks. Thanks for listening.